you talk first about South Africa, Nigeria comes next because of oil. But if you look at the North Africa, where Egypt is, with the Zagreb region and the GCC region, Egypt is the gateway to part of Europe and as well as the Middle East. So that economy had always been the kingpin for North Africa region. So for that purpose, international political, economic, whatever, had always had Egypt as a focus. Nigeria had always been a focus pre-independence because of agriculture, after independence because of oil. So globally, Egypt is always a destination. And if you look at what happened over the weekend, 2,000 people met together. That was a deal-making event. It wasn't just a talk shop. So it wasn't about the president, Al-Sisi, coming in and give a fantastic speech and talk to people and have great lunch and everybody's backstepping. No. They were busy. And as that report showed, there were companies like General Electric and others who were making exhibitions of what they can come back to do in Egypt. And again, because Egypt hitherto, 2011 Arab Spring that ousted President Mubarak from office, had a template for economic progress. If you look at the story, the Egyptian stock market, very strong capital market in North Africa, a doyen of the North Africa, whether it's Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, and the rest of them. So to that effect, to that end, as it were, Egypt had a template. So it's not difficult for investors to say, okay, fine, let us get Egypt sorted out because it's a major player politically, even for the Middle East crisis between the Palestinians, and the Israelis and what have you. So Egypt has always been a critical factor, politically speaking. So the earlier the rest of the world fix Egypt and put all hands together to fix Egypt, the better for the rest of the world. If Egypt is in crisis, then the whole of Middle East, North Africa, what you call the MENA region, will continue to be in crisis. So you need to fix that very quickly. So they need to come in and bring all this money, 60 billion. Now they're also building a new city costing about $30 billion, a new capital city. That is something good. They're revamping the Suez Canal. They're expanding it. That means you have more traffic for gas, for oil, going through that region into Europe and part of the Middle East. That is something they need to fix very quickly. But if you look at the political crisis in Egypt, it's a little bit different from Nigeria. Egypt was going through a political transition. Nigeria had this Boko Haram issue, which was a quasi-political, economic, and religious cocktail, very volatile, that has come to bite Nigeria on the backside. Now that is a little bit of a different issue, because this looked like a bunch of petty who had suddenly become highly sophisticated criminal, and now they're saying they're good to have Africa as their focus, and they're appealing to ISIS and things like that. Now that is different. You don't have that in Egypt. What you have in Egypt is the Muslim Brotherhood and a few others. So they're trying to get us sorted out and move on. Nigeria is also very important for the world, not just because of the oil, but we have both human and material resources that the world is in dire need of. So Nigeria would have to also position itself to get itself fixed the way Egypt is being fixed. I'm still thinking how Nigeria can get 2,000 business executives, bankers, top brands around the world to come together for 3 days. Where would that take place? Lagos, Abuja, Calabar, Akwa Ibom, where would that take place? Where can we have such a conference for 3 days? Do we have what it takes to mobilize the world to say, come and show what you have for this country and have a show of confidence? But a few things are similar between Nigeria and Egypt. Egypt also has very huge bureaucracy that is inefficient. And that is something that the administration of President Al-Sisi will have to fix. We have such a very huge bureaucracy, civil service in Nigeria. In Egypt, according to one report, that's about 25%, about 7 million civil servants in Egypt takes care of 25% of the budget every year. In Nigeria, we have the figure also on our hands. In terms of the number of those who are poor and those around the poverty line is 2/5 of the population in Egypt. I'm sure in Nigeria the figure is worse than that. So these are similarities. But getting Boko Haram out of the way and sitting down to have what we call the Marshall Plan for the northeast Nigeria, for me, is a critical thing that I think those who are in administration right now should be thinking of. But do they have the time to think about that? That's a very big question. Election is around the corner. Yes. So right now, the Northeast, thinking about an economic and financial investment forum that would focus on the Northeast, kind of a master plan for them to bring them back into the economic fold of Nigeria, keeping the bad guys away, and making a long-term plan in place for them that will put them within the time frame, or sorry, within the framework of our economy. Now, this is not just talk alone. You need money as well. So you need to pour billions of naira into the Northeast. Where would we find the money with the oil price significantly down or whatever? That is a lot of conundrum, if you put it that way, something that will be very difficult for us to handle. But you can't talk about anything about this until after May 29.
Very true. Thank you so much for joining us on Nezagafa Boston Omofaye. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Well, we're still looking at security issues. We just focused on the economic consequences concerning the Boko Haram sect, but also women and children are among dozens of people who were killed in a dawn raid on a village in central Nigeria. Now, there's a conflict in the number of victims, with some reports saying as many as 45 people were killed, while other reports suggest 81 others were killed in the attack by unidentified gunmen on Egba village in Benue State. Clashes between herdsmen from the Fulani ethnic group and farmers over grazing rights have plagued the region, and Benue State has a history of violent attacks and reprisals between semi-nomadic herdsmen and farmers, sometimes in revenge for cattle raiding. Now, one of the stories, unfortunate incidents, but also has a bit of a light side to it, or a side which we should be thankful for, is what happened over the weekend when Nigerian soldiers detonated 2 homemade bombs found in a camp housing people displaced by Boko Haram violence in the restive northeastern city of Maiduguri. The 2 men suspected of planting the explosives were arrested, and an investigation is ongoing. The bombs were found in the city's Yerewa primary school, prompting panic until soldiers destroyed the bombs from a distance. The school was converted into a camp for internally displaced persons after the sect captured the town of Bama, some 70 kilometers from Maiduguri, last July. We'll take a quick break now on Network Africa. When we come back, we'll be speaking to the Voice of America's Jeffrey Young concerning the mindset of the Boko Haram sect as regards soft targeting. Stay with us for details.